I guess I could probably just talk. I'm showing live over here, but my screen is lagging so hard that I don't even see myself right now. I see my static screen from about 60 seconds ago. So let me check a couple things here. Yeah, my processor is working overtime. Okay, good to know. Thank you, Berserker Bear. Glad you can hear me. I may even refresh this tab and see what happens. Yeah, I think I'm going to. Okay. All right. That might have us up and running. All right. So for anybody who's maybe going to watch this later, right now it's pretty quiet so far. Just got started. It's Friday the 13th of March, and welcome and hello. Just hanging out live for a little while with you today while I work on a little bit of research for my next episode of the podcast. Delayed it just a little bit to listen to that presidential address that actually is still kind of going on, but I think I heard what I need to hear for now on that, and we won't talk about that until later. So, nope. Just getting updates from downstairs because it's still going on. So, for anybody wondering, I'm Steve, Baked and Wake. Hopefully, if you're here, you probably thank you, Berserker Bear, for the 5x5. Hopefully, if you're already subbed to the channel, you know a little bit about the podcast. So, not gonna, go into like an introduction or anything dumb like that. The presidential live address is still going on, and my wife is down there watching it because she's teaching from home today. All the schools here in Washington are presently closed in like King, Snohomish, and Thurston counties, and I think Jefferson County is not, and Pierce is not, or maybe Pierce is in. The whole state's going to be on lockdown pretty soon on schools. Everybody's been tracking the story. You guys know that here in Western Washington, most of the tech companies have also asked most of their workers, or if not, in some cases, all of their workers, to work from home. So nobody in the house is sick. We're all healthy right here. So there we go. And I'm not going to turn this into like a full stupid, Corona quarantine vlog that nobody cares. We're all under Corona quarantine, almost wherever you are, or if not, you're about to be. So enjoy. And I'll let you guys know of stuff as it occurs and as it makes sense. Excuse me. As things develop further around here, but probably in other ways, like follow me on Instagram, Baked and Awake on Instagram. Easy place to find me there, where I'm active. It's probably the only social media platform that I'm active on, besides hanging out in the Discord group, right? So a little later here in a moment, I'll turn on the screen share and I'll show you guys the Discord group for those who aren't, hip to it yet. But, what I was planning on doing today was actually, and let me turn on that screen share right now. Don't show this tip again. It's always warning me that my computer might not be good enough to to screen share. Darn right. 2014 Mac. All right, so that did work. There we go. We're in. This is just the beginning of my notes for this episode. So coming up on episode 100, and I'm working on a couple of different topics that I find really interesting, none of which are coronavirus. Okay. Again, we might talk about it here for a minute in the live stream, but I'm not going to build content around it. The whole world is building content around it. Every podcaster in the world is talking about it. Every YouTuber in the world is talking about it. Everybody is using it as an excuse to boost their channel and talk some shit and make predictions. And yeah, we're going to resist that urge. I don't think I have anything that I need to contribute to that conversation so badly that we need to build a episode around it. So Squirrel Sniper, what's up? Good to see you. There you go. Glad to hear the audio is working, properly again now. So what have I got up on screen for you guys? Is it big enough? Maybe I can make this just a little bit larger. There you go. Go old people size on there. So I found this blog a few weeks back. I am going to drop the link to the blog right into the chat for you guys so that you don't even have to follow directly on my screen if you don't want to. And this is like a really, I don't even know where I came across this. Probably Reddit. Whenever I really don't know where something comes from, it's probably something I bookmarked from Reddit and come back to later. This blog post came out like the beginning of February sometime, middle of February. And I found it like a really interesting theory. It's got this thing called the theory of general descent. Brett, what's up? Let's see if that'll fit in the chat window for you guys. Yes, looks like it made it. So I'll, just for fun, read a little bit of this for you guys. That's the other thing I'm going to show you later. And so I'm hoping that I keep looking over there because I'm over there. You guys are right here. That's what's up. I'm hoping that you'll leave your comments and observations about this thought experiment of this person's in the chat, because I'll be mining the chat, later for questions. And in the case that you're watching this after the live stream, by all means, leave a comment. You can leave a comment at that time because the live chat will be over, of course. So I found, this was the 18th of February that I found this. And the reason why I'm calling it a topic that I want to look or talk about on the podcast, even though it's like one blog post, this guy has apparently a whole additional mountain of thought behind this that he wants to release in chapters. So I guess I'm amplifying his signal a little bit right now. This David Reishi dude, like reishi mushrooms, in the hopes that some of us can watch this develop together as this guy continues to build his theory. So again, he posted this on the 18th of February, and I may not read the whole entire blog post, but in the 1980 comedy movie, The Gods Must Be Crazy, the story begins in the cockpit of a small airplane flying high over the Kalahari Desert in southern Africa. The pilot is drinking a Coca-Cola from one of those classic glass bottles, and after slurping down the last sip, he nonchalantly opens the little window next to him and drops the empty bottle from the plane. Far below, on the desert floor, a bushman elder named G is roving about in search of food and water-bearing roots when he suddenly hears the whirring whistle of a falling object, and seeing it land nearby, goes over to investigate. Have you guys seen this movie? I've seen it a few times when I was a kid. The Gods Must Be Crazy. Total classic, by the way. He finds the pilot's Coca-Cola bottle half buried in the sand. With narration that sounds straight out of a nature documentary, the movie tells the story of Gies and his tribe's relationship with this strange, mysterious object. Though original and funny, the movie employs an old stereotype about tribal peoples, especially hunter-gatherers such as Kalahari Bushmen. To wit, in their primitive ignorance, they can't fathom the essence of even the simplest products of our more advanced Western culture. There we go. There we go, Squirrel Sniper. It was that movie was ahead of its time, wasn't it? In so many ways. So let's see here. So he says, the joke's on us. For it happened, the tribes around the world, including the tribe cast in The Gods Must Be Crazy, have dropped at our feet a product of their own. And like the Coca-Cola bottle to the Bushmen, it's a product that has remained to our Western minds an impenetrable enigma. This guy's a good writer, right? I like him. In the eyes of those who've encountered it, this product has taken the form of a strange, mysterious data, a peculiar principle of equivalence or sameness between grandparents and grandchildren, showing up in their behaviors towards each other, their personal names, and most commonly the real spoken relationship terms that they apply to one another. As an example, here are the words of anthropologist James Boyd Christensen summarizing such data among a tribe in Tanzania, Africa. Second one is great. I think I heard of it. I don't know that I ever watched it. Is my window fan driving you guys crazy, by the way? Or is it, damped enough that it's not a big deal? Because I have a window fan on low over here. Let me know if you can. Squirrel Sniper. Or Brett. I know there's just a couple of you hanging out with me right now. Okay, so they go on. He goes on. The kinship terminology permits alternating generations to refer to each other as brother or sister, and a young man may tease his grandfather about marrying his wife. The identification of alternate generations with each other is rather strong, and grandparents tend to take the part of the children against parents. When a parent would slap or strike a child, the grandparent might say, "Why do you beat me?" So when I read this paragraph originally, what struck me about it was, again, those of you who've been following for a little while may have heard me make mention of this either in Instagram posts or in some comments here and there on the podcast. Each of my boys, I have young sons, 8 years old and 4 years old, and especially in their earliest times of talking, and right as each boy really got full command of full sentences and started telling tales. When your kids, any of you who are parents know when a kid goes from, kind of mostly responding to you and asking little pointed questions to suddenly they're a storyteller and they're telling you about their dreams and things like that. Both of my boys have on more than one occasion, thank you guys. Whistler, good to see you. Said really cryptic, hilarious and eerie statements about how, and I mean one after another, these kids are 4 years apart, and both of them came up with stories like this about how when they were our parents or how they used to be our dad and now we're taking care of them kind of thing. Okay. And this is something that I think other people's kids come up with too and talk about, a lot of times when they're really, really young and they come up with these stories. And sure, imagination, dreaming, seeking to understand your world, seeking to understand your relationships, that you're in, that you were born into, that you're in the midst of right then as a little kid, dawning consciousness. I get it. So I try not to overthink it, but this paragraph just pinged that same kind of nerve or bone in me. That really enjoyed those stories from my kids and always made us ask more, probing questions and try to get more details out of them. Oh, really? How was it? What was I like? How do you know? Those kind of things. And you get, obviously the more you ask, the less coherent and more, contrived their answers become. So it's kind of like, you let them make their initial statement or two and maybe ask a follow-up, but you try not to go too crazy on it because it just gets hilarious and sideways after that. But yeah, so that's the vibe I picked up there. I was like, whoa, grandparents and grandchildren, interesting. Now these kids, these are my own kids, so they're not my grandkids, and so this isn't a direct parallel, right? I'm aware of that. He goes on. For centuries, anthropologists, explorers, missionaries, and even government officials have collected this same kind of data around the world. They've tilted their heads and blinked at it. They've nudged it, shaken it, and flipped it around in various directions. And they've grunted out all sorts of guesses as to its origin and import. Yet despite recording, pondering, and publishing it countless times, they've never managed to grasp what this data actually signifies. Like the airplane flying high above the Kalahari, the truth has simply gone over their heads. So again, guys, I've practiced when they really have that kind of, yeah. Did durable medical power return? That's awesome. There we go. Yeah, role reversal, squirrel sniper. I'm telling you, yeah. And again, this is, kids are incredibly inventive and imaginative. But I found it fun and interesting that both of them came up with these stories for us in a row. So let's see here. So cue the Bushman G chuckling to himself, he says here in parentheses. And guys, the link's in the chat there if you want to look at the website itself or save it yourself, bookmark it, and track this guy's next release with me, because he's got another, forthcoming chapter of this theory supposed to be coming our way. We're not very far through it here yet, but he says, all the while, it turns out that this data, this principle of sameness between grandparents and grandchildren that's been recorded in tribes throughout the world, is nothing other than the outward expression of a very definite idea, a belief. Sure, it might seem perplexing that something as relatable as an idea could have remained veiled to anthropologists for so long, but it's an excusable offense, for this idea is unlike anything ever conceived by modern Western people. So here he's going to get sort of to the heart of it. Right? I'm like, where did this guy come from? Berserker Bear? I don't even know. It doesn't look like a very big blog. If you look at it closely, it doesn't seem to be, I think it's pretty new. Like, he just threw this up here. Is this a guy I follow on Instagram? Let me look right now. I'm going to look right now and just double check if this isn't, because I think I follow a guy called Reishi on Instagram. Okay, one new post. I am following a David Reishi. He has 40,000 followers on Instagram. Oh, God. Okay, so that's the account I'm following on Instagram. Not sure if it's the same guy or not. Okay, because I don't see, is the blog post here? Let's see. Yep. I think it is. Yep. Okay, I think this is the same dude. And let's double check it. Yeah, fieryblog.com is right there in his profile. So that's where I found this guy, not on Reddit. Okay. So we can track him, follow him here on Instagram, and look for his next release of the blog. So this is where this guy, I must have seen it in my feed come up, and I don't even know how I found his account originally, unless, he could have pushed it down as like a try to boost his own post. You know how they do that on Instagram too. So the account has only got a few posts on it, right? You guys saw that. There's only 3 posts on that whole account. So his Instagram account is newer. This blog appears to be newer. It's got 40,000, almost 41,000 subscribers on Instagram. I've named the idea General Descent. Yep, discoverer of a fascinating idea that gripped the minds of early humans. So, as far as I'm concerned, David, if you ever come across this video and are listening to it, I don't know if you care or not that I'm blowing up your blog and checking it out already, but tough titty, I guess, because you put it out here, right? You got an Instagram account. You're trying to get it out there, so I'm helping you. You're welcome. So let's see. Let's listen to the idea. Imagine believing that you reappear in the world every 2 generations. No, really. Put it in your mind that what makes you who you are descends through your children, but skips them, and is reborn and often multiplied in your grandchildren. I don't mean that this or that aspect of you is reborn. I'm talking about the diehard conviction that somehow, independent of any and all aspects, certain of your grandchildren are you. Imagine being convinced that you reappear, if you're a man, in the persons of all your sons' sons, and if you're a woman, in the persons of all your daughters' daughters. Daughters. Your mind has just been implanted with the idea of general descent. He says this idea is definitely nothing you've ever heard of. If you Google it, you won't find a wiki page on it, any news articles or books about it, or indeed any results at all. If you ask anthropology professors about it, they'll say they've never heard of it. The reason why you won't find anything about this idea is that nobody except me, and now you, knows about it. That's right. I'm not here writing to you about something that's already been discovered. You're currently reading the words of the person who discovered it. Okay. Maybe. And being thrust into that position, really, in parentheses, more tripping and falling into it, and subsequently working for 10 years to excavate the idea, I must choose how to reveal it, which, if you've been following, I've decided to do by sharing it with you right here at the Fiery blog. So he says he's going to show it to us in a series of posts here. He's going to show us concrete evidence of his idea of general descent in a unique tribe or group of tribes around the world, with each post forming a link to those next to it in terms of what was actually going on with the idea. In every case, you'll see evidence that has been recorded, published, and disseminated widely throughout libraries and book collections worldwide, but without anyone involved or any reader since decoding the picture behind the data. That is, until now. So he's going to show us this general descent in books, in perhaps documents in history. So looking for that, looking forward to that, definitely looking for that. Again, this is post 1. He doesn't have his follow-up out yet. We're almost a month later. Yeah, he just told us he's been working on it for 10 years. But one blog post, a very cryptic looking Instagram account, but a very toothsome little theory and idea that somehow reminds me of something, even though it is a bit of an original notion. I mean, we've got the reincarnation concept, right? That's a thing, and it's something that is by no means new. This is a little different, it sounds like, than that. I've always been struck my whole life by, especially in my early childhood, how often people would tell me that I looked just like somebody, like I had a doppelganger, like I had a twin somewhere, like I had, an identical cousin somewhere, over and over again throughout my whole life. Maybe you look at me and see a face that you've seen somewhere before. And I don't think I have the world's most common face, the most, regular American Joe features either. But we all see those people, like there's actors who seem to appear over and over again down the generations somehow, or at least people who look just like older people and, people who have lived and died. And I mean, those aren't necessarily people who we think are related or in some cases, maybe they are, thereby slightly explaining the superficial physical resemblance, right? But these are just things that remind me of it and come to mind when I'm reading about this general descent idea. So, all right, I'm still live. It says we're at 26 minutes. Chat's pretty quiet. Drop a hey yo in the chat if you're there and if everything sounds all right. Drop a thumbs up if you're feeling generous. Sub it up if you're not subbed up yet. That would be super tight. Trying to chase down 1,000 subs. One of these days, I'll get over 1,000 and we'll get a community tab and get a few other neat features on the YouTube channel. So, okay. So I said it reminded me of reincarnation. He says he's going to point out that general descent is nothing like ideas of reincarnation. So after all, according to it, in addition to reappearing 2 generations later in more than one individual, your rebirth occurs very often while you're still alive. Thus, it's not a belief that your soul returns in some other form after you die, but the belief that new, younger versions of you are produced 2 generations after you, whether you're alive or not. Indeed, general descent isn't about people's souls or a spiritual belief, but rather, to those who've subscribed to it, more akin to a scientific idea about human nature, for it arises as an explanation of a real-life phenomenon. I love this kind of stuff because it makes me think about all that so-called junk DNA that exists in our bodies, right? That is but dimly understood, and things like epigenetic memory and Rupert Sheldrakeisms like morphogenetic fields and stuff like that. You could probably see by looking at me, my little brain thinking about weird shit like the Akashic records and, collective human subconscious and, inherited generational trauma. All stuff that some people probably don't believe in whatsoever. And, I'm not here to die on any of those hills saying that any of them are totally on point. Not at all. Our DNA is on a loop. There we go. Nice, Steve D. Well, there we go. I'm glad this was resonating with you, on some level. You hate cutting Brussels sprouts? We did that last night. We cut our Brussels sprouts and roasted them up. They were super delicious. What did we have last night? Brussels sprouts, artichoke chicken, and some corn on the cob, oddly. I don't know why we had corn on the cob in March, but we did. Traits. This is what I'm saying, Squirrel Sniper. All right, so. Indeed, general descent isn't about people's souls or a spiritual belief, but rather those who subscribe to it. So who's that? Us? Maybe? Because he's just telling us about it right now. Maybe who he's been talking to about it for the last 10 years, right? More akin to a scientific idea about human nature, for it arises as an explanation of a real-life phenomenon. So what's that phenomenon? What real-life phenomenon would lead tribes to believe that people are replicated every 2 generations? Indeed. Bon appetit. Smoke them if you got them. I recently age-restricted my whole YouTube channel, by the way, you guys. So all videos are now age-restricted. I don't know if that'll help me at all with COPPA and YouTube's terms of service and compliance and stuff like that. But however tangential the cannabis use and cannabis talk is on so many of my episodes, because half the time I don't even talk about weed, we do smoke a bit, and we're obviously pro-cannabis. So I went ahead and just recategorized the whole channel as age restricted. So trying to keep it clean. That's what I'm saying though, Berserker Bear, trying to keep Star Dog. Nice. Very nice. This is old mystery flower from like 2018. I'm still smoking on right now. So that's dope. That's what's up. So what's this real life phenomenon? So like what I might do, guys, with this is, since we're spending time on it now on the live stream and trying to gather thoughts and gather questions to dig into on this, I may even wait to include this in a podcast, full-blown podcast episode until he comes out with that chapter, that next blog post, the first follow-up to this, just so we can see where he goes with this from here. But he says, it certainly wouldn't be physical resemblance or shared mannerisms between grandparents and grandchildren, seeing that these individuals by no means always look or behave the same, nor are they the only relatives in whom similarities are likely to appear. Okay, so this is interesting. The answer instead is a certain persistent coincidence, a naturally occurring law that manifests itself in how every husband and wife and their grandchildren stand in relation to each other socially. You may be familiar with the fact that in tribal societies, whether hunter-gatherer, agricultural, or pastoral, a person belongs by birth to not just a family but a larger, usually more prominent network of kindred, which we'll call here a clan. I think clans are smaller than tribes, right? In parentheses here, he says, this clan isn't to be confused with the hunter-gatherer's localized band, which in some hunter-gatherer tribes lines up approximately with the kin organization, but in others is quite distinct. So, a band could change more because, you might be a hunting band or a fisherman, what have you, and have non-relatives in it, right? I assume is what he's trying to explain to us here. The clans make up one tribe can differ considerably from those that make up another. For example, they might differ in their size and number, in whether they possess names and emblems, or remain all but invisible to the naked eye, in whether their members are dispersed through the tribe or live locally segregated, and in perhaps the biggest question of all, whether the clans continue themselves via a, quote, patrilineal or matrilineal descent. That is, whether people in the tribe belong by birth to their father's or mother's clan. But despite how they might differ from tribe to tribe, the clans of just about every tribe in the world share one basic trait in common, namely, the members of each clan, being made up of close and distant kin, abide by a rule known as exogamy. I hadn't seen that term before. Right there, obviously it will remind you of like a term like monogamy or polygamy, right? It's one of those gummies. It's exogamy, or marriage outside the clan. This rule against marriage between kin, which has likely been around as long as behaviorally modern humans have, almost always extends out of the clan and forbids members of closely related clans from marrying as well. As a result, every man and woman who join together as husband and wife stand in a certain inborn social relationship with one another. Simply put, they belong by birth to different marriageable clans. So this is an interesting, understanding that's embedded within his theory here, that when you have this notion of general descent and yourself being replicated, sometimes even within your own lifetime, in the form of new members of your own clan, how do you keep that generation, not you, who's operating above and behind them, really, but that generation from accidentally sort of, marrying inappropriately, I guess, unproductively, right? So, yeah, like that's some high-level societal organization, there that would have to be grokked, right, and agreed to as a group. Jenny, nice to see you, brother. There we go. No problem. It's just we're just hanging out. We're just doing. I'm looking at a concept called the idea of general descent. Jenny, anybody who's coming along right now a little bit late to the stream, but yeah, a crazy concept that, in a nutshell, is that we are a person, someone who, and I don't understand, if he's saying here yet that, like, is this like foam in the ocean where all of us beget new us's, and that next new us in turn does the same thing themselves, like super exponentially, logarithmically, to the point where the curve goes up and all the way backwards. Or if we're all this one smaller set of identities that started a really, really long time ago and are perpetuated, proliferated down through time. It's wild. I don't know. So, all right, let's read about the law. So yeah, Eugenie, sorry. I was trying to tell you that, that in the idea of general descent, we are duplicated by our grandchildren's generation. Not all of them, but some of them may represent a copy in some way, not identical physically, but some sort of resonant copy of us. And that there may exist a strong affinity between that young child, that new being, and their progenitor, their creator, not their creator, but their grand copy. And it just reminds me of a whole bunch of stuff that I've heard about my whole life in different forms. But he's sort of parsing it differently and like de-occulting it, de-confusing it in a sense. So he says, what is this naturally occurring law that I speak of above? To get back to it. As real as the law that an object thrown upward always comes down. It's the law that this inborn social relationship belonging to each husband and wife, that is, their birth in marriageable clans, always happens to repeat itself in their grandchildren. So this is interesting. In other words, a couple's sons and daughters, children that aren't born in the same clan, or closely related clans, or just any clans in relation to each other, they're always born in clans that are marriageable. Just like the husband and wife 2 generations prior. So is that to set up the possibility that if those beings wanted to reunite, they could do so and have it be proper still? To be clear, I'm not talking about whether these grandchildren who are first cousins, parentheses, cross cousins, might actually be permitted to marry. Okay, that varies from tribe to tribe. I'm speaking purely of their having been born into clans which are deemed marriageable. Okay. There's a lot to unpack, obviously. Trade skip a generation, how I heard it, it, boy, right? Always the hair, the widow's peak, the complexion, whatever it might be. Yep. So they say this naturally occurring law, which despite being practically universal in tribal societies, has remained unknown to modern anthropologists and scholars. It's illustrated in the following figure, showing 1, a husband and wife, 2, their children, and 3, their grandchildren. I appreciate that he came up with these little tree graphics, the family tree graphics. As you'll see, we have to see a couple more of them before we're done, and I get a little confused with them. But reading through it again is helpful. That's for sure. So here we see, the original couples. They marry. And the children that come from that marriage on line 3 are born into marriageable clans. They may or may not be able to marry because they're some kind of cousin at that point. They would have been born to siblings. So there we go. It's the children of the children. So it's the children of those children on line 2 who are the copies, and they're born into the marriageable clans, and this shit is confusing. I apologize. Proof of the law's existence in tribes around the world is found in the sheer inevitability with which the law works its way down the generations. Below, I show the process in patrilineal and matrilineal tribes side by side. The law's route being distinct, in each. The letters represent each person's clan of birth. So, First generation comes from Clan A and Clan B. Their children are born together into Clan A, patrilineal. And the second group, the matrilineal tribes, we see they're born into Clan B, Mama's tribe, right? And then those children who are born into the patrilineal tribe, the children of the boy child will remain in Clan A, and the children of the girl child will move to Clan B, C, D. All right, so this does make more sense the second time around. And when you then go to the matrilineal tribes, that gets flipped. The children, the female child of the A and B couple on line 1 of the graphic there, that female child stays in mom's tribe. She's born into tribe B. In a patrilineal tribe, she would have been born into tribe A. Well, no, she would have been born into tribe B, but it would have been defined differently because we're in a matrilineal dichotomy here. Her brother and any other siblings that aren't female will leave their mother's matrilineal tribe and join the tribe of their wife, their spouse, A, C, or D, when they reach marriageable age, right? Or when they go off to marry themselves. So that's interesting stuff to see broken down that way. That does clarify things. I hope some of you guys look at the blog itself, thisfieryblog.com, and maybe even comment on the post itself. You know, he's got comments turned on that post. I left a little casual comment, like prodding him, looking for another chapter to this the other day. If you make it there, you'll see it. I'm there. Saying like, I'm sure we're all looking forward to the next one, because I really am salivating for it. So he goes on, in patrilineal tribes, we see that a given husband and wife of clans A and B, respectively, their children are born under the husband's clan A, as are their sons' children in the next generation, while the daughter's children are born in whichever clan their daughters marry into. Okay, so we just went through that, so I'm going to through the rest of that paragraph. We did understand that properly, though. Cliff's notes. All right. A tribe, by the way, is well familiar with how the law works. Indeed, more familiar than we can ever be. The mystery to the tribe isn't in the technical details, but in the larger question of why the law exists at all, as if there must be some hidden, greater significance to the law beyond it being merely the result of natural circumstances. What does that mean? Unnatural circumstances? Even so, you may wonder how the belief that people actually reappear in their grandchildren could possibly arise as an explanation of this law, i.e., seeing that these particular grandparents and grandchildren don't even always belong to the same clans as was shown above. But this last fact, this partial discontinuity of clan within the law, turns out to be precisely the feature of the law that's directly responsible for the belief's rise. Turns out to be precisely the feature of the law that's directly responsible for the belief's rise. For it constantly reminds the tribe that even though it manifests itself in everyone's clan of birth, the law is separate and distinct from the clans, and therefore any deeper reason behind the law, any more meaningful explanation for it than mere natural circumstances, must be sought in something other than the clans. And what's the only other tangible thing in the equation? The people themselves. By this means, the law ultimately causes a tribe to become convinced of something remarkable, that the reason why the law exists, why a husband and wife's inborn social relationships to each other always repeats itself in their sons' and daughters' children, is that what's really being repeated are the husband and wife themselves. In other words, the tribe discovers, or at least believes it discovers, that every husband and wife's sons, and daughters are the husband and wife, little reproductions of them, with all respective differences in their physical appearance or mannerisms being attributable to other causes. So, yeah, like the thing that immediately occurred to me while reading that last paragraph is just the thought of how fundamentally like obliterated the tribal, familial sort of organization, has been like defeated and sort of eliminated these days. Like people marry all the time, people, I mean, we have, a multicultural world, right? We have a society where people move, they leave their home countries, they move to new countries, they, marry people of completely different backgrounds and histories. So there's got to be less of, is there less of this? I mean, the replication may take place, but where are the clans? Where's the opportunity to perpetuate that relationship in most modern societies, modern cultures? And that's not, that's a stupid thing to say, modern. Yeah, so he's saying they're not going to be necessarily identical to the grandparents, right, at all. So he says here, the rise of the idea of general descent as an explanation of the above law tells us another important fact about the idea. Namely, it didn't originate in one place long ago and spread outwards from that single point, but instead has been springing up independently in tribes all over the world, and it's been rising like this probably from the time humans first began organizing themselves on the basis of kin, and in a few little enclaves around the world, continues to arise in the same fashion to this day. So in a few little enclaves around the world, continues to arise in the same fashion today. So I think he's kind of conceding right there that in much of the world, we won't really see this fully expressed anymore as clearly because this is being lost. In future posts, I'll show you that springing into existence in this manner throughout the world, the idea has left us a trail of evidence millions of miles long. But here at the Fiery Blog, we won't just look at evidence of the idea's existence. For so it happens that this idea that people are reborn every 2 generations after arising does more than exist. For so it happens, it does more than exist. Okay, it's a bit of a cumbersome sentence, but having sprung into the minds of a tribe, the idea subsequently engages in what is by far the most dynamic process in any new thing, including an idea, can engage in. It falls into contradiction with reality. So totally, yeah, I mean, kind of what I was just saying, in a sense, like we don't get to see this in our reality, most of us, unless you're still in a family that, like has arranged marriages that are based on like family affiliations that go back generations, and if so, and if you're listening to this now or later, and you ever want to talk to me about that, that would be incredibly interesting, illuminating topic to learn more about. How intact are your tribes in your life, in your world, with your families? As a adopted guy of a closed adoption in New York in the early 1970s, yeah, pretty safe to say I don't have my tribe, you guys, at all. So Reishi says here, let's backtrack for a moment, because he just told us it's going to fall into contradiction with reality, this concept. We just saw that the idea arises in a tribe as an explanation of how a real law that manifests itself between husbands and wives and their grandchildren. Thus, we saw that whether or not the idea is the correct explanation, it nevertheless fits with reality. That's what makes it arise. So how does the idea, once arisen, fall into contradiction with reality? What does it fall into contradiction with? The answer, however, isn't so much a matter of what, but of who. For after the idea arises in the minds of husbands and wives, it begins to collide and clash with men and women in a completely different connection, the relation of brother and sister. It's an ill fit that, over time, gives rise to three major contradictions in people's lives. Oh, I see. I get it. Okay. I'll show you one of these contradictions right here. Yeah, so more often, these generation removed copies are going to find themselves like in a, oh, my wife just made honey mustard. Brilliant. I love it. I want to try that soon. You can make homemade mustard really, really easy, by the way, you guys. So if you've never done that and you are a fan of delicious condiments, you can make your own dope ass like wasabi mustard, whatever. It's really easy. So I'm not going to go into it right now, but I'm going to have some mustard after this and I'm going to be stoked. So yeah, he's saying these guys are going to find themselves more as brother and sister more often than not in that cousin situation so much where they could be tempted to come back together and as husband and wife again. So let's see here. Illustrated below, it's the contradiction that a brother and sister's little selves. Oh, yeah. So it does get complicated. It's like this, you guys. It's like you're okay. Oh no, you're back to wait. This is risky territory again. Because he says here, it's the contradiction that a brother's and sister's little selves, according to general descent, that is, the sons of the brother and the daughters of the sister, often happen to be born in marriageable clans. In each instance, it's as if the original brother and sister were not siblings, but husband and wife. So then, see, that's they show you there. They're going out to a point where now they appear in marriageable clans. Clearly, if it's genuinely believed within a tribe that a man's sons and a woman's daughters, a man's sons and a woman's daughters are the man's and woman's reproductions, then to the tribe it would only seem right that these respective grandchildren of a brother and sister are born as brothers and sisters themselves. It's only logical, or if not as biological siblings, then at least born in the same or closely related clans, whose members within the same generation usually regard each other as siblings in a looser sense. In italics, but members of marriageable clans? Even if they never actually married, their birth in this social relationship, in the presence of the idea of general descent, would represent, in the eyes of most tribes, some degree of an abomination. That's more or less the gist of this particular contradiction. That in its clash with opposite sex siblings, the idea runs up against a tribe's social norms. The other two contradictions each have their own special department and impact on a tribe. So while it's hard to follow, there you go, you Jenny. Yeah, you feel me, bro. These people have a really subtle awareness of who should be or who shouldn't be appropriate, as a pair. And he's framing it as existing within a acknowledgement and obedience to this sort of law, right? By the sound of things. So again, that's, back to my fascination with this. So, any podcast content to come from this topic will be a lot more structured and tighter guys. And so even if you're hanging out with me now on the live and digging this idea, hopefully by the time I sit down to record the podcast episode related to it, and as I indicated, I'm going to probably wait for his next update to this blog. Should be coming any day now because this is almost a month old right now. I may wait for that, next update from him to get a little bit more background on this. But we'll have some fun with it and hopefully, include some of the chat comments from today from the live, and probably have some trains of thought to follow up on from the chat comments for my own notes on the show. So it will be different content in the podcast. We're not going to just edit out all my ums and ahs from this live stream and call it a podcast episode. So he says here, what do these contradictions cause a tribe to do? Does the tribe stand by and let the integrity of its brother-sister connection be trampled in different directions by general dissent? Or does the tribe choose its ancient tie between siblings over the idea and abandon the idea as incompatible with reality? So this is interesting. He says the answer is neither. Instead, the members of the tribe do what anyone worthy of the name humans would do in the presence of an idea they truly believed. They change reality. That is, they take society in hand and using a combination of genius and might, transform it in order to solve the contradictions and hence bring reality into harmony with the idea. And when I say transform society, I don't mean it figuratively. I mean they literally invent new ways of organizing human beings and controlling their interactions. You'll see here at the Fiery blog that many of the most widespread social institutions that anthropologists and others have recorded in tribes around the world are none other than products of this universal worldwide effort to resolve the contradictions associated with the idea of general dissent. Okay, so he's saying we're already honoring this and have been, and maybe still are, in some way. Here's an example. The institution known as the Moiety system, M-O-I-E-T-Y system, has been documented in many tribes around the world, indeed on every continent except Europe, yet its purpose has remained a mystery. By far the most prevalent version of the system can be described as the permanent division of a tribe, that is, the distribution of the tribe's clans into two great exogamous, there's that exogamous term again, intermarrying halves of the tribe, or moieties. These two moieties aren't geographical or territorial halves of the tribe, rather they have a purely social existence. The way they work is simple. Given a person's birth in a clan assigned to one moiety, he or she is forbidden from marrying into any clan of the same moiety, but is allowed to marry into any clan of the opposite moiety. Below is a basic representation of the organization. So I guess in this way they kind of, it's interesting stuff. So tell me if I'm wrong here, you guys. This sounds like they're kind of making sure that, once you come together once, after that, it's not going to be that easy or that, to come back together again, that same husband and wife. There's a graphic here. Moiety 1, Moiety 2, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, A through M, N through Z. Okay, simple enough. The mystery of this institution to anthropologists has always been, why? Why would a tribe establish such an organization? Okay, so he's saying we've got this, we've seen it time and again in tribal structures, and we didn't know why. For what reason would humans expend the energy? And these questions are warranted, for even though the moiety system is simple, it would be no easy institution for a tribe to implement. It involves, in essence, curtailing the clan's independence and forcing them to interact according to a single tribe-wide scheme in one of the most important matters of life. Thus, there has to be some cause behind its existence, some need that makes itself felt in a tribe, which the moiety system fulfills. This need is nothing other than the contradiction we just looked at in the previous section. Right. I mean, this is what I'm saying. Like, these duplicates are going to appear in our same, family lines. But, yeah, one second, everybody. I gotta answer my boy. He's talking to me. It's the mustard. I got the magic bullet from the mustard. That's good. That's good shit. Okay. I put it away. Put it away so I don't eat mustard while I'm talking to you guys. So we're avoiding the incest, right? The contradiction we just looked at in the previous section, that are brothers and sisters, little reproductions, i.e., their respective sons, and daughters, are often born in marriageable clans to each other. A tribe, either by its own ingenious invention or by borrowing that of a neighboring tribe, establishes the moiety system for the express purpose of resolving this particular contradiction, ending it once and for all. How the moiety system resolves this contradiction is demonstrated below, for the sake of simplicity, in a patrilineal tribe. Thank you. So he just did it in one example for us. Substitute matrilineal at will. Original couple, top shelf, is Clan A. Boy child coming down from him, it's going to be Clan A, all the way on down. Moiety 2, Clan N through P, etc. is the daughter, is where she'll be born. And her daughter, daughter not granddaughter, will be NOP through Z. Her daughter will be Clan A, B, C, etc. Now, so what does that really say, though? Because I'm still confused. Obviously, we're all confused. We sit in a patrilineal tribe organized into moieties. Group affiliations occur down the generations in a very orderly fashion. What's of interest to us here are the affiliations of brothers and sisters, respectives, sons, and daughters, i.e. their re-embodiments according to a general descent. They're still often born of different clans from one another. It requires more to prevent that. But now these different clans always belong to the same moiety and therefore will never be marriageable. Okay, I dig it. Because as long as you're in the same moiety, they're like, no, you guys are too related. You're not marrying. In other words, as soon as a tribe organizes itself into exogamous moieties, the contradiction seen previously is completely and utterly resolved. Kaput. So yeah, he closes with his invitation to, stay subscribed and get ready for the next post. Oh, he's got references for the post. Let's look at them. We haven't got a new post yet. So that's what's up with this theory of general descent. I thought it was incredibly interesting. Let's see. He has a not too long, like a pretty concise, but so therefore manageable set of references on his reference page. The Gods Must Be Crazy book, of course, that James Boyd quote or reference is from 1963. I saw him mention Boyd in the main blog post, joking sexual license and social obligations among the Luguru, American Anthropologist, number 65, page 1317. Yeah, he did an excerpt. He did a paraphrase from that guy in the blog post. Below are some sources for the moiety system by continent: Africa, Asia, Australia, North America, South America. So he gives us extra reading if we want to do it, and I will certainly do some of this. I'm going to look into some of these resources that he's provided as references and try to find digital versions of them. Anything I find, I'll share with you guys in the show notes. You know, I always do. If you're newer to the podcast and haven't listened to a lot of prior, full-on podcast episodes or YouTube-specific content from me, I always try to give you pretty solid notes and provide as much of like the relevant reference material as I've used to build the content. So if you go back and look at anything and you need more and you didn't get what you needed, or my notes were somehow incomplete, obviously please let me know. You can comment on any of my stuff on YouTube, or you can always email me, right? Email me directly at talktous@bakedandawake.com. I've been live for an hour, and this is just one topic. There's a couple other topics that I'm pretty hyped about getting into, not the least of which is this Glamis calling website that I'll just show you the peak of it and send you guys to it. Anybody here who's in the Tartary Exertus Discord already probably knows about this. I feel like it was like Logical Warlord might have been the member of the Discord who shared this originally. Thanks, you, Jenny. And this website's called Glamis Calling, and these guys seem to be some weird hyper quasi-Illuminati type group, but it could just be total web hoaxing and trollery of the highest order. Jury's super out on this. These guys are just really interesting, and I don't even know. Look at it for yourself and tell me what you think of that. I'm not even going to get into it right now. But it's on my radar for potentially like seriously being looked at. It's just a giant wall of these cryptic, sort of blog posts, or not posts, but like messages. The World Governing Council supports Scott Morrison for the PM post. Congratulations on your upcoming victory, for it is assured. Go try to find the World Governing Council. I don't know who they are. I don't think they're real. There's somebody who has like a whole bunch of YouTube videos up dedicated to like looking into this and sort of investigating it and debunking it. Let me see if I can find it for you guys. Actually pretty easy to do if you YouTube Glamis Calling, right? Like, check this out. I'll do it for you guys. I know you can't see me right now. Stand by, relax. Boom, 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 boom. Go back to that. Do that. Take you. Come away. You guys seeing that yet? All right. Boom, we're going there. It's delicious. I love it.
Is it good?
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to come down and have it on a sandwich.
Oh, you're not supposed to have it for 2 weeks. Just sit in the fridge for 2 weeks.
I'll just eat some of the other stuff. Okay, I'll be done in a few minutes. Here we go. You can see how slow my computer really is, you guys. Thank you, Michael. Bicameral mind is still interesting as hell. We need to keep on talking about the bicameral mind. I think it's wild. And I mean, it's still like discussed by a lot of people. If you look up bicameral mind on YouTube, you're going to find probably 50 hours of content on that. That was such a fascinating topic. God, love the bicameral mind. I got the book in paperback too. I was reading it in PDF at the time when I did the episode, but I'm stoked because I got my physical copy of that as well. I might have to pick that up and dig back into that one. So see here, newest Glamis Calling post. Who's this? And then my thoughts on Glamis Calling and Somerset Belanoff. So there's one that I obviously watched because it has the red line under it. I think that's the channel that has several videos on this. I'm not going to play their stuff right now. Although a lot of YouTubers don't realize this, and I find it fucking hilarious, frankly. If you read your YouTube terms of service actually in full, it is in perfectly plain English that part of the YouTube terms of service not only allows YouTube to reproduce and use your stuff if they want to, but it grants you the same right to reproduce and use anybody else's YouTube content in your content. It's expressly part of the terms of service, and that's what a lot of people get wigged out all the time when other YouTubers use their content. But in a lot of cases, the person who's using the other person's content has actually read the terms of service of YouTube a little bit more in detail and have a better understanding of it than the people who are crying about the fact that they put something out on their public channel and put it out there and even solicited or indeed challenged people to like, oh, what do you think? Tell me if I'm wrong, blah, blah, blah. Well, a lot of people use other people's content, not only in combative and like confrontational ways like that, but also out of simply like, what if I wanted to play this, this person's helpful and interesting, analysis right now. Like, I don't think I paid for the version of the software here on my screen share where you could actually hear it. But I know you, Jenny, I'm going to get off and you guys can get back to your day too. But yeah, YouTube terms of service says we can all use each other's stuff. And I think more than just a little bit. I invite you to read the YouTube terms of service yourself, which I have done more than once and very recently too, I might add, and tell me if you think I'm wrong about that. So who is it? Have123. Help her out. She's only got 370 subscribers. So check her out. She's got a couple other videos on this Glamis Calling, I believe. Let's go check her channel out real quick. Yeah, Glamis Calling. So check them out. Check her out, and then you see when I did that search on that, there's a couple other videos. People are looking at it. I know you, Jenny. I know you're not busting my balls. It's all good, bro. YouTube on YouTube crime. I'm telling you, it's an imagined crime, dude. Terms of service say we can all use each other's shit. And we can. And I don't that much though. I really don't. So it's not something I need to do too much of. Glamis Calling, weird, cryptic, seeming like they're issuing directives and sending out, you have green light to launch Nepali-Sat 1 after April 15th. The fuck was that? Posted on April 9th, 2019. What was their latest post? When was the last time these people spoke? Oh, they haven't spoke since last May. They're on radio silence right now. What did they say last, though? The shadow line is watching over. Upgrades will begin shortly. All frequencies will shift. I love it. Yeah. Glamis Calling. So that's what's up. Check them out. I think I dropped it in the chat there for you guys. There's more to come. I don't think the episode will be out, for a couple more days. I really like our friend David Reishi to update the theory of general descent. David, come on, bro. Let's get chapter 2 of the theory. That's what I need to make a good podcast episode. Okay, last link I'm going to give you guys here. This is just for you lives, all right? You guys are getting the inside drop. Yeah, what do you got, Michael? I mean, I'll be happy to chat with you. I'm about to sign off in another minute or two. I'm going to give you this wacky link to a crazy PDF that I came across, and this one I really do think I got from Reddit. And this is like an 800-page, I don't even know what, maybe it's a manifesto. It's called The Divine Province. Can you see it? Yes, let's see here. Where is it? There it is. It's 825 pages long. It seems it's called, the subtitle is Birthing New Earth. But really, Michael, fire away. I mean, I'd love to chat with you a little bit. He's got an ISBN number, so this book is quote unquote published, somewhere. I don't see like this, and there's no Library of Congress ISBN number or anything. So this is a big old book. It's a crazy book. It seeks to lay it all out for us, all the big questions and who's running stuff, the threads that bind the earth, religion and commerce, the religious pyramids, the Vatican Empire, the pyramid of debt, the corporate pyramids. The corporate model comes from Sumeria, corporation planet Earth, the global elite, gods, bloodlines of the elite, the 13 royal bloodlines, right? Error theory. No, I'm not familiar with error theory. Do I want to know about it? I probably do, though, right? He goes into the Rothschild dynasty, okay? Jekyll Island and the Fed. If you've read The Creature from Jekyll Island, that was an excellent book on the creation of the Fed. Really will change the way you think about capitalism and, modern capitalism, the way it's been implemented today after the creation of the Fed. The threads that bind the dynasties, the power behind the bloodlines, a secret that unifies the gods. I mean, this guy goes into everything here. The underlying beliefs of Satanism, foundation of the Roman Catholic cult, conundrum of Satan and God, Satanism as a corporate business model, darker history of the Vatican. I mean, so this is a crazy book. Eugenie, read this, or at least look at it, please, with me, because I don't even know. It just keeps going. So this could be total madness. It could really be, I don't even know what. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, is that the fermented? Brilliant.
Hi, Dad.
Okay.
Ginger sauerkraut.
Hi, buddy. Delicious.
Isn't it good? Next
With
time
my
I make
crackers.
oatmeal, a little bit less salt, but
It's great.
I love the ginger flavor in there. It's really gentle.
I'm only going to refrain from shoveling it into my mouth because I'm just finishing this live.
Okay. I just had to share that with you.
Thank you.
Hey, come on, Bean.
I'll be done in 5 minutes, buddy. Okay.
Zoink.
I'll see you soon.
Chocolate eyeballs.
I'm gonna need some lunch. Error theory. Where's it at? Can't post the link here. Look at the wiki for moral skepticism. Yeah, no. Let's see here. Moral skepticism. Looking now. All right, so you guys, that's that book, The Divine Province. I don't know anything about it yet. That's how fresh it is. I'm just sharing it with you guys. Because obviously it's really big and it's a PDF, so it's going to take a while to sort of slog through in that form. But the table of contents couldn't be more interesting and so on point for anybody who's about that Tartarian mud flood history vibe. I'm calling it more and more to myself every day. I really feel like Tartaria is the Atlantis mystery rebranded for the 21st century, truth seekers audience. The more I look at this, the more I just feel like this is a way for us to re-engage on the same mystery that's always been there, that our grandparents' generation and parents' generation probably called Atlantis, is what I think personally, right? So let's see here. Divine Province. Yep, the Divine Province. That's the one that this book is, Eugenie. So let's see here. Pure philosophy topic. I love it. No, see, I love that shit. I'd love to get your thoughts. And it's moral skepticism. And we're talking about error theory and moral skepticism. Always misspell skepticism. So this is ginger sauerkraut that my wife made. Fermented, fermenting is different than pickling, by the way, you guys, and doesn't require like pressurization or a lot of really elaborate sterilization ahead of time. Awesome way to preserve food, not just food that you grew, but you can go to the store and buy a head of cabbage and turn it into sauerkraut and then have that cabbage for months. Right? Hi, Missy Painter. We are wrapping up, but we're learning about a new philosophical topic Michael brought up that is probably not new, but it's just new to me because I'm a big dummy. Moral skepticism, a class of metathetical theories, all members of which entail that no one has any moral knowledge. It's not possible. Many moral skeptics also make the stronger modal claim that modal knowledge is impossible. Modal skepticism is particularly opposed to moral realism. Moral skepticism is particularly opposed to moral realism, the view that there are knowable and objective moral truths. Okay, interesting. Some defenders of moral skepticism include Pyrrho, Anisidemus, Sextus Empiricus, David Hume, J.L. Mackie, Max Stirner, Friedrich Nietzsche, Richard Joyce, Michael Roos, Joshua Green, Richard Garner, Walter Sinnott Armstrong, and the psychologist James Flynn. Strictly speaking, Gilbert Harman argues in favor of a kind of moral relativism, not moral skepticism. Okay, so we've got moral realism, moral relativism, moral skepticism. Do these all exist on a spectrum? However, he's influenced some contemporary moral skeptics. So, and there's moral error theory. So let's jump to that. Moral error theory is a position characterized by its commitment to two propositions. 1, all moral claims are false. And 2, we have reason to believe that all moral claims are false. Michael, you are one controversial individual. The most famous moral error theorist is J.L. Mackie, who defended the meta-ethical view in Ethics, Inventing Right and Wrong, 1977. Mackie has been interpreted as giving two arguments for moral error theory. The first argument people attribute to Mackie, often called the argument from queerness, holds that moral claims imply motivation, internalism, in parentheses, the doctrine that it is necessary and a priori that any agent who judges that one of his available actions is morally obligatory will have some defeasible, in parentheses there, some motivation to perform that action. Because motivation internalism is false, however, so too are all moral claims. Is motivation internalism false? Maybe. I guess they say it is. The other argument, often attributed to Mackie, often called the argument from disagreement, maintains that any moral claim, e.g. killing babies is wrong, in parentheses, entails a correspondent reasons claim. One has reason not to kill babies. Put another way, if killing babies is wrong, it's true, then everybody has a reason not to kill babies. This includes the psychopath who takes great pleasure from killing babies and is utterly miserable when he does not have their blood on his hands. But surely, if we assume that he will suffer no reprisals, this psychopath has every reason to kill babies and no reason not to do so. All moral claims are thus false. Right, okay. Michael was an atheist, pretty far left, but thinking about this made me rethink things like abortion. Right? Mudflood. Yeah, I mean, so I will have to listen to probably somebody sit here and hold my hand through this and explain it to me like a baby, you know what I mean? But but it's very interesting because I love these questions that like just call into question everything that we like to just say is handled. We solved it. There's moralism, right? There's some things that are objectively wrong. I guess I would, having just been handed those like Cliff's Notes labels of the theory, it must is yeah, I'll do good anyway. Yep, exactly. Because of a perceived moral, realism, right? I think just being presented with those labels, moral realism, moral relativism, moral skepticism, I think most of us might want to skew. Initially, the gut reaction would be to moral realism, but I guess the moral skeptic is saying that this motivation internalism is false, so I'll need to understand that better. Because this also makes me think of cybernetics, which I've talked about in the past on the podcast and found really interesting, because it's like through understanding cybernetics and implementing it at all, you can like seriously predict the behavior of a living, thinking, seemingly sentient being, like anywhere on the evolutionary scale all the way up to us, right? We're managed every day by colors and sounds and symbols and rule sets that have been embedded into us since day one of our joining this realm, right? And there's whole schools of thought dedicated to like understanding that underlying biological, whether you call it a trap or framework or whatever we're existing within, that as a goal-seeking organism that just wants to maintain homeostasis, health, and achieve a few objectives, including reproduction, and safely maybe rearing your progeny, right? That might still be a strong part of the full being's encoding, and you got to stay vital until you achieve all these things. And then once you maybe have checked off all those boxes, a lot of your imperatives have been fulfilled, so you can kind of start to wind down. But that, a lot of decisions that you think are conscious free will decisions might just as much be natural responses to stimuli, avoidance of pain and reward seeking behavior. Moral realist, but you can't say why, right? I mean, I want to say that's what I am, but I kind of know we're closer to moral relativists all day long, right? Like we're always making decisions that are slightly at the expense of other people to stay comfortable, which is probably a problem. Dude, great topic, Michael. You get a star, bro. Like, great topic. Gonna have to look into learning all about moral skepticism and the other two, moral realism and moral relativism, and understanding all of them. And then this error theory. Really interesting. Because see, like I'll literally have to reread this paragraph a couple, 3 times just to try to grok it fully. All right. Well, super appreciate that. This is kind of exactly why I went live, to hang out and talk about that whole general dissent thing, because this is how I engage my transhumanist extended neural network, is by plugging into you guys and having you guys hang out with me while we look at interesting and new things. And I will do my best to bring you guys a really fun podcast episode about general dissent, especially when David Reishi drops his next blog post on that. But I urge everybody who watched this today or who's checking it out right now and in the days to follow, go peep that blog, read it yourselves, because it makes a difference when you read something for yourself as opposed to listening to me talk about it. And you'll come up with more questions or more observations. Drop them in the comments. I would love it. This is super fun. It's been super fun hanging out with you guys. Like I said, I wasn't going to turn this into a corona pandemic vlog quarantine. I won't say I'll never do any kind of update like that over the next few weeks. We've got some really interesting, weird weeks ahead of us, everybody. So if you're spending any of your time with me right now during these weird times, thank you so much. I appreciate you so much. Be good to each other. Stay healthy. Eat good. Keep fresh food coming into your body, fresh fruits and vegetables. I'm not a doctor, and that's not medical advice, but I do think that there's a direct correlation between keeping fresh, powerful foods from the earth going into our bodies and keeping our immune systems humming, right? And whether we think this is a man-made virus or a totally natural virus or some weird black goo powered, Morgellons activation by 5G, which is what I think some conspiracy theorists are like working up to right now, and I can't even keep up. Probably staying well fed and well rested, probably some of the only things we can do, right? It's how we keep our batteries topped up, how we keep our tanks topped up. So do your best, everybody. And have whatever fun you can anyway. All right, you guys. Yeah, 5G. I don't know. Messy Painter. There you go. Go ahead and, like I said, I didn't want to turn the whole talk into that, but if you guys want to comment on it in the comments after this, I'll probably, read some of them and come back around on some of them in future podcast content or YouTube content where we just sort of check in on it a little bit, because it weighs heavily on my mind. And I did indicate in the description to this that I was going to talk about, like, some people are tying this back to that November 3rd episode, that Koken Mit Willy German or Austrian guy who I saw some videos talking about a false flag that was supposed to happen in Seattle, and that was going to be real bad all around the world. Oxygen at 60 hertz. I mean, I'm telling you, Messy Painter, I just don't know enough about it yet. I'm seeing the stories. It's just so scary. Like, some stuff is so scary. I'm even afraid to read about it or to listen to the stories about it or talk about it or look at it, because I'm just like, this can't all be happening. But it kind of usually seems like it is. All right, you guys. Stay safe, stay cool, smoke indica, and do shit anyway. And I'll see you real soon.